daughter saw a photograph of me holding a pint of lager and I was 14 years of age, and she turned around and said to me, "Dad, you look like a little kid." And she was right, because I was a kid with a beer in my hand. The photo was taken in a pub in Tenby in South Wales, and my dad had arranged the whole thing. He probably buttered up the landlord all week, made sure his teenage son could walk up and buy a pint, not because he wanted me drunk, but because he didn't know how else to connect with me.
Blast from the past. How many of you have a photograph of you drinking your first ever pint? Not at your 18th birthday, not a wedding toast, but your first illegal, underage pint of lager, cider, bitter, whatever your poison was, captured in a rite of passage. Well, I do. And it's a reminder of something important, something connected with the liquid lie. It's not purely because I was drinking underage, but because in that moment, nervous, uncertain, 14 years old, I finally felt like I had my dad's approval. A photograph of a boy trying to become a man with a lager in his hand. Hello everybody, welcome to the 1000 Days Sober podcast. My name is Lee Davy. I am not an alcoholic and I refuse to be anonymous. I am someone who lives a self-led life, alcohol free as fuck, and I spend every waking moment of that life helping other people do the same, like right now, brothers and sisters. Yeah, I have this photograph of me. How incredible that, 14, let me do the maths here, 36 years ago, there was a photograph snapped of me drinking my first pint of lager, and here I am helping people to see the liquid lie and to recover from alcohol reliance. God, Allah, Buddha, Jesus, the universe, whatever you call it, works in mysterious ways, right? But yeah, I had the photograph the other day and I had it out. I left it out actually. Me and my mate is in the photograph with me. I'm 14, he's 16, and I look like a child. Because I was a child, right? Even my daughter Zia, she saw the picture, she stared at it and she said, "Dad, you look so young." And she was right, because I did, because I was holding a pint of lager. The photograph was taken in a pub in Tenby in South Wales when I was on vacation, that's the American in me, on holiday, the UK Brit in me, with my family, and my mate came along as well, right? And my dad had taken us to the pub, and he had obviously been there all week with my mom or whatever, and he'd spoken to the guy who owned the place, and he must have said to him, "Hey, I'm going to bring my kid in and his mate. Is it okay if I give him some money?" And he comes up to the bar and orders a pint, right? Like he must have organized, because if you look at me, I'm so young. There's no way, even back in those days when things were a little bit more liberal, that anybody was ever going to serve me, right? But the thing was, I do remember that moment. It was the it moment, the father and son rite of passage moment, right? My dad had given me the money and told me to go to the bar. That was terrifying for me. I remember getting to the bar and I wasn't even sure what to ask him for. And I always remember people in my dad's pub asking for BB or best bitter. So he looked at me and he said, "What do you want, son?" And I said, "I'll have a BB." And he said, "We don't serve BB." And I panicked. And I said in the end, "Oh, I'll have that then," and pointed to a lager. And then he pours it, gives it to me. I give him the money. And I'm walking across the pub. Everyone's watching me. My hand's shaking. I'm terrified of spilling this thing, right? I get back and I have a sip and I got a bit of froth on my bum fluff, you know? And I look at my dad, right? And he smiled and he laughed and he had a camera because we didn't have mobile phones in those days. And he took a picture of me and my mate. And for a brief golden second, I really felt like I belonged. Not in the pub, but to him. My dad. And I remember later on, after we'd had our pint, that we were talking about real adult grown-up things, talking about vasectomies and all that kind of stuff, right? And I just remember feeling like a man, feeling accepted, like I had been finally initiated into his world. And yet, when I was younger, my dad was rarely ever present in my life. He was working away a lot. And when he was home, he was kind of strict. He was a little bit distant, a little bit cold emotionally. He wasn't the type of guy who was going to play with you or ask how your day was. He was a kind of man, old school man, who believed that children should not be seen and not be heard, right? He worked a lot, and when he came home, he just wanted the kids to just disappear because there was four of us playing mayhem, and he probably just wanted to chill out and spend some time with my mum, right? So when he was away, I actually felt a little bit more relief. I think there was a part of me as the only boy in the family that grew into that, like, father presence, like the man of the house type of thing at too young of an age. My mom always told me that she feels like at that time she lent on me a little bit too emotionally. She was kinder, she was nicer, she would let me get away with more stuff. I remember in 1986 during the World Cup in Mexico, my dad was working away. My mum would let me sneak downstairs when my sisters were asleep and cuddle up on the couch and watch the football with her. I remember sneaking down and watching Jaws with her and being terrified. Life just felt easier when he wasn't around. But still, I craved him, I craved his approval, I craved his attention, and I craved his love. I didn't think of that back then. I used to grow up saying I don't want to be like him. But as I've got older and I've done more work and dug into my inner child and my trauma and stuff, I found that, there's this desire for me to be seen by him, right? And I remember being 18 as well. One of the first thing I did was went to the pub with my dad, because in the UK, when you're 18, you can buy alcohol yourself. Yippee! So I used to go to the pub with him on a Sunday, and we would both sit in silence. He wouldn't say anything to me. I wouldn't say anything to him. We'd both be drinking, and then he'd say, right, I'm going to go and do the raffle, and he would disappear. But there was a bond there, a bond, a ritual, no eye contact, no vulnerability, just pints. And I often imagine, I haven't asked him, but I often imagine if that's how he interacted with his dad, how his dad tried to connect with him. And anyway, the message here is, other than getting the violins out, that this drive is how the liquid lie gets passed down generationally. When we are working in internal family systems therapy, we often talk about legacy burdens. We find parts within us that suffer from legacy burdens, racism, sexism, patriarchy, that type of thing. This is partly like a legacy burden, for a young boy to have parts that really want to be seen by their fathers or absent fathers. And it gets passed down from son to son to son to son, like a family heirloom, quietly, invisibly, lovingly, and unfortunately, when it comes to the case of absent fathers, quite disturbingly, right? Anyhow, we're going to take a short break. And while you're in that break, I want you to ask yourself something. What were you really drinking for that very first time? Approval? Belonging? A sense of being seen by your mum or your dad? Your mates maybe? Or maybe it was never ever about the alcohol. Have a think about that. Welcome back to the 1000 Days Sober podcast, where today we've been exploring how a single pint of lager can carry decades of unspoken longing, and how the liquid lie uses moments like these to bind father and child into silence. So, the photograph. It was never about beer. It was never about alcohol. It was always about status. A boy becomes a man. A dad becomes a friend. Alcohol becomes the glue in between that. But it is cheap glue, brittle, fragile. Because when the pint ran dry, so did the connection. And that day in Tenby wasn't a rite of passage. It was a shortcut, a false ceremony that skipped over vulnerability and replaced it with performance. I wasn't initiated into manhood. I was indoctrinated into the liquid lie. And my dad, well, he didn't know any better, right? He didn't have a manual on how to do these things right. He didn't think drinking alcohol was anything other than nice, normal, natural, necessary, and noble. And like I said earlier, he probably was repeating the process that he had experienced with his own father. But here's the thing, strivers, all of you out there, men and women, we are the generational breakers. We are not our fathers, we are not our mothers, and we don't need pints to connect us to our sons or daughters. Today, When I talk to my daughter, I talk to her about emotions like fear and joy and shame and embarrassment. And when I connect with my son, who's now 24 years of age, we don't do it in a pub. We just do it anywhere but except there. And we need truth, presence, eye contact, time, groundedness. Strive exists for this very reason, to take the shortcut rituals of manhood and replace them with self-led integrity. We are not here to drink with our children. We're here to lead them. Okay, today's vow. Today I will not drink alcohol because I will no longer confuse silence with connection. I will no longer accept pints in place of presence. I am a generational chain breaker. Booyah! And I choose to connect with my children, my loved ones, and myself fully, openly, and without the liquid lie. When you go about your day today, ladies and gentlemen, please reflect on these questions. What's your earliest memory of drinking with someone you wanted approval from? How did it shape your idea of connection? And what will you do differently with the people that you love? If this message hit home, please help me share it. Send it to fathers, to sons, to mothers, to daughters. Rate and review the show wherever you are, because it will help more strivers find us and learn from these stories that we're telling, the tips, the techniques, the strategies, and subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. And if you want to find out more about the work we do to become alcohol-free as fuck and live a self-led life, then email me at thestrivemethod@gmail.com to find out how I can help you. I'm currently working on a workshop with, it's not a workshop, it's a course with 24 workshops called Strive Foundations, which will give you a beautiful peek into the Strive method, because 24 of those workshops comes from the Strive method. So you'll be able to take a look at that at a knockdown, really affordable price. Okay. So email me at thestrivemethod@gmail.com if you want to learn more about Strive Foundations, and I'll reply straight away. Okay. Are you ready to take today's sovereign vow? Hand on your heart, hand on your belly. Take a big deep breath. Repeat after me. I am a striver who is alcohol free as fuck. And today I will not drink, because that is not what I do, and that is not who I am. Until tomorrow, much love. Strive on, everybody.